Hey everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. My package with the Simon Says STAMPtember limited edition collabs arrived, so I have been filming like a crazy person. So, for this video, I am using the limited edition Brutus Monroe collaboration, the Autumn Greetings stamp set. If you are not familiar with STAMPtember, this is like the biggest stamping event of the year that Simon Says Stamps started a decade ago. This is like the 10-year anniversary. And throughout the month, they release limited edition collaboration sets with a bunch of awesome companies that create stamps. These are exclusive to Simon Says Stamp. They are only available while supplies last during the month of STAMPtember. So a couple of the sets have already sold out, so I will not be doing videos on those because they're gone, can't get them. This one is still available. It just got released yesterday, I think, as of doing this voiceover. Yeah, I literally got the package open and started creating. So this set is a big 6x8 stamp set with all this big snow globe option and then different images you can stamp inside. So you can create like a Christmas theme snow globe, a Halloween one, and a fall one. And I used all three because I couldn't decide which one to use. So I'm stamping them onto Neenah Classic Crest Solar White 110 pound cardstock. Usually I use the 80 pound, but for these cards, I knew I was going to cover them with crystal glaze. So I wanted a heavier weight cardstock so that I could minimize any chance of it warping, and it was perfect. So I'm stamping these images using my mini MISTI, and I'm using Simon's Intense Black ink. And stamping everything more than once to get a really good, deep, crisp black impression. I chose this ink as well as this cardstock because I wanted to do Copic coloring. Thankfully, for once, I was like really thinking ahead as I was creating. Because I wanted to use the crystal glaze, I needed to use Copic markers because if I used anything water-based, you know, watercolors, water-based markers, etc., when you go to add something like crystal glaze or glossy accents, there is a really good chance that it is going to pick up that color and either make it all smear or it will tint the crystal glaze. So I purposely chose to use Copic markers because they'll just stay put. You know, I could add sprays or whatever I wanted on top of them and it's not going to do anything. There is an option. I'm just like thinking out loud right now. There is an option though if you did color images like this with something else like distress inks or water-based markers, etc. If you used microglaze and sealed it, like if you use something to seal it and then coat it with something like crystal glaze or glossy accents, that could work. It could work. It's potential. I don't know. I've never tried it. Someone leave in the comments if you've ever actually tried that. I wouldn't see why it wouldn't, because if it was sealed first and then you added that crystal glaze and, you know, let it dry, nothing should happen. So anywho, I did include the Copic markers I used. The base, I kept them all the same, did the bases first, and then the actual images, I was technically kind of grabbing markers at random, but thankfully I think I wrote them all down, the ones I used. I did also speed this up. This is like super fast. This is like 800% faster than I normally color. But otherwise, this video would be way too long. I didn't do anything fancy with the coloring. That's also why I don't have a problem speeding it up. Like I'm not doing any special blends or special color combos, anything like that. I was just grabbing colors that I thought would look nice. And because these images are, like they're large and yet there's a lot of detail going on, but I found that I don't need to do, you know, a lot of fancy blending or anything. I just wanted the color down because, yeah, once the color's on, no one's going to notice if, you know, the blend is not perfect or whatever. So with the Halloween one, of course I did that one first. I wanted, you know, a dark sort of night sky. So I did dark blues and then, you know, a deeper green for the grass. I just went with warm grays for the little haunted house here and literally just threw the color on. Nothing fancy. Just got that color on there. So warm grays for that, and then I used cool grays for the tombstone, you know, added oranges for that pumpkin, of course, and a brown for the wood fence. The moon, I was like, I kind of dither between doing like yellow or more like of a gray, like more realistic, but I wanted the yellow, just, you know, gave that little extra bit of color. So added all of those, and then with each of these, I would just set it aside, and then I like had a pile of markers out, so I'm just like grabbing colors, like I said, grabbing colors at random to color everything in. So another option that I thought about doing with these, because it's a snow globe and like the lines and everything, you know, the reflective lines are already on the stamps. But what would have looked really nice is to add, you know, the white streaks with like a gel pen, etc. But things like gel pens, again, you don't want to add any of that before adding crystal glaze, because the crystal glaze will dissolve all that. That's why I didn't add, usually after I color with Copic markers, everyone knows that watches my videos, I usually will go in and add little dots and highlights and whatnot with a gel pen. That is completely pointless though if you're planning on coating it with crystal glaze or glossy accents or something like that, because it will literally dissolve the white gel pen, because again, they're water-based, and it just, as it slowly takes all those hours to dry, it just like sucks it right up and you won't see any of that highlights. So don't bother adding it. Do your crystal glaze. You can add it after if you want. And that gives a really neat effect too. You can just literally draw over the dry crystal glaze with a white gel pen, or you could use some white paint. I did think about that, but I decided against it because I'm going to add glitter, because, you know, got to have a little bit of bling in some way. So those are my random thoughts on the, crystal glaze and all that kind of stuff. Another thought I had while making these, I was like, oh, it would have been so fun. There is a coordinating wafer die for this set. I don't have it. Those are in very limited supply, because you can buy just the set or the set with the wafer die. But another option was to like cut out the center portion and like turn these into shakers. That would have been really fun, because of course snow globe, shaker, that sort of an element. That would have looked really fun too, but instead of doing the shaker, that's why I added I'm going to add all the crystal glaze to these and just give it that raised glossy look. But that would be a really fun option too, is to stamp the snow globe and then cut out the center portion and then have the interior design of whichever scene you want, stamp that on cardstock and layer it underneath, add the shaker elements, you know, clear acetate. That would look so cute. I'm not joking when I say I would pay good money to have more hours in the day so I could create all the things I want. Anyway, with the fall one, the funny thing is I couldn't decide between the Halloween and the Christmas, and then I did the fall one because it was there. And in the end, the fall one actually ended up being my favorite of the three. They're all amazing, and I love the scenes, and I think Brutus Monroe did an amazing job, like, with this set, and just, there's so many options, there's so many sentiments, everything. But this fall one, just, as the colors kind of came together, I just fell in love with it. So, all of them, but especially this one, seems very busy and almost overwhelming when you look at it. Like, I kind of kept hesitating because I was like, I don't know if I have enough time to, you know, like, get them all colored, etc. But I find I just jumped right in, like, pick one spot, which with me, it was like the tops of the trees, and just start coloring. And as you start coloring, it becomes obvious, like, what is what, where everything goes, and it just comes together, and it's 100 times easier than I thought it was going to be. So I just tuned out as I was coloring, like I always do. I either have, you know, Netflix going, or HGTV, home reno for the win, podcast, audiobook, whatever. This time it was audiobook. I'm kind of obsessed right now again with Harry Potter, even though I've read the books like 20 times. I have them now on Audible, so I've been like literally like letting those play while I color images. Just something I enjoy. So anyway, that's what I was doing. I was just listening to the books and then coloring to my heart's content with all of these. So once I just get them all colored, like I said, I don't have the coordinating wafer die for the set, but it's a very simple one to fussy cut. Honestly, I would have preferred having the wafer die just so I'd have the nice white outline. I think that would have just given it an extra something. But rather than try and fussy cut with an outline, I just fussy cut these right up against the image. It was just easier that way. So before I get to any fussy cutting though, I wanted to add a sentiment, and I decided I was going to heat emboss directly onto the base of these. I tested this first. I wanted to make sure, because technically Copic markers do dry quickly, but it's surprising sometimes how they will pick up embossing powder. So I used my anti-static powder tool first, and then just poured embossing powder over all of these just to make sure that, you know, I wasn't going to mess them up after, you know, coloring everything in. And they were good to go. So anti-static powder tool, wiped off the excess, and then I'm stamping the sentiments I wanted to use from that set, the Autumn Greetings stamp set, with Simon's clear embossing ink. And each of the sentiments I curved myself just slightly. It's one of the joys of clear stamps. You can kind of do whatever you want with them. So I curved them on the block before stamping them, so they kind of conform to the base of each of these. I thought that was just, you know, an extra little something. So I stamped sentiments with the clear embossing ink, and then I'm heat embossing them with Simon's Detail Gold embossing powder. Because again, I was thinking like snow globes usually have those like gold metal, you know, tags on them with this, you know, whatever scene it is, etc. So gold heat emboss that onto all three with 3 different sentiments in that set. And then after I get these heat embossed, then I can trim out each of these with my fussy cutting scissors. And still my preferred method of fussy cutting scissors is my little cutter bee scissors. So I just go along and cut out each of these right up against the edge, just taking care to kind of keep it as close to the edge as possible without cutting into it or leaving any bit of a white border. So going along, I always hold my scissors kind of in one position for the most part, and it's the paper I move. Over the years, I've done so many videos showing fussy cutting, although as I'm getting older, as more wafer dyes have become available, I avoid fussy cutting. If I don't need to do it, I'm not going to do it, just because I do find, like, again, my hands just can't handle it, depending on how much there, you know, in cutting is involved. But these weren't too bad. So trimmed them out, trimmed off the little bits that I, you know, missed on my first little pass there. And then to make everything look a little more seamless, a little more clean, I used my Memento TUXEDO black marker, just the brush tip of the marker, and just lightly went around all of the edges of this image. And that just covers that exposed white cardstock and makes everything look, you know, more seamless, just more done. So repeated this process with the other 2 snow globe images. And then once I've got all of those cut out and edged, I am going to now create my backgrounds. I've said this in other videos, you guys are going to see it more and more often. I'm obsessed with stencils and dry embossing with them. Yeah, now that I've figured it out, aka looked at the platform of my Spellbinders Platinum 6 that had it all laid out for me, I'm doing it all the time. So I chose a different stencil for each card. For the Christmas one, I'm using the new Holiday Foliage stencil. Ran that through with some green cardstock. And with all of these, it's just the platform, the stencil, the cardstock that I want to emboss on, the rubber mat that comes, like the rubber embossing mat that comes with the Platinum 6 machine. And then I add just 1 cardstock shim. It just depends on your machine and everything, whether you need them. And then I add the purple embossing mat, run it through, done. So I did, like I said, the Holiday Foliage stencil with the green cardstock. I ran through some like kind of mustard yellow color cardstock with the DECO weave stencil. And then with the last one, the Halloween card, orange cardstock and the candy corn stencil. So just kind of repeating the process here. And each of these pieces of cardstock I cut to be slightly smaller than an A2 card front. So after running all of these through my Platinum 6 machine to get them dry embossed with those stencils, I'm going to ink all the edges, just again to give it that little extra something without a whole lot of crazy effort or anything. So in all of these, I'm using Simon's inks to ink up these cardstock. And these inks, all of them will dry back. So some, they look a little bit kind of streaky, you know, as if I didn't do a very good job blending it onto here. But I'm not worried about that because these will dry back significantly, especially on color cardstock. They just, you know, once the inks like sink in and fully dry, it softens considerably. So with the green one, I'm using Simon's, it's green leaf cardstock and green leaf ink. So a very subtle blend, but it does give it that little something. And I'm just using one of my Picket Fence life-changing blender brushes and just working on my glass media mat here. So once I'm done with one color, I wipe off the glass media mat to make sure I'm not going to end up picking up, you know, any of the green ink. And then with the brush in between colors, I just rub it on a microfiber cloth. This one is getting stained. When it's full of ink, I just throw it in my washing machine and wash it with the other rags and whatnot I use for cleaning. And then, you know, bring it back to my office and use it over and over again. Like it's stained, but this is how I clean my brushes. So remove the excess ink from the brush and then I go on to the next piece. So for this mustardy piece, I used Simon's. I started with Sunshine ink first, just to kind of give it that softer blend. And then I actually deepened it up with a bit of dark chocolate ink just around the very edges. Again, this one ended up turning out to be my complete favorite. So the dark chocolate ink is a very dark, intense ink. So I was very light-handed with this one. Just very lightly blended it along the edge just to give it that extra little something. And then same thing. Cleaned off my media mat, cleaned off the brush, And then with the orange cardstock and the candy corn dry embossing on it, I used Simon's orange peel ink and blended that on. And again, this one's going to dry back quite a bit and just be a very subtle like blend here. Like right now it looks really intense, but by the time it's completely dry, it's going to be really subtle. So set those aside. All my card bases are Neenah Desert Storm cardstock that I'd cut to 4 1/4 by 11, scored at 5 1/2. So these will all be top folding A2 cards. And to finish off the insides, I am just lining up that snow globe image again, and I'm going to stamp that onto the inside of all 3 cards using Simon's Cobblestone ink. So do all 3 bases just with the snow globe. Remove the one base, stick in the next card base, get that all stamped, and then I'm going to stamp those same scenes on the insides as well. You don't necessarily need to because it's the inside of the card, but I wanted to finish it off with these. So I stamped the scenes onto each of those, and then I chose a different sentiment than what I would use on the front of the cards. I just chose a different sentiment and just lined it up, just using my mini MISTI. I could have used an acrylic block. Either one would have worked. And I did the same thing. I lined up the stamp, and then I just kind of curved up each end of it before stamping it, so it kind of, again, conforms to that little like snow globe base. And the sentiments I stamped with VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, just so they kind of stand out a little bit more. So after finishing the card bases, I'm going to adhere the dry emboss card fronts to each card, making sure, I definitely took note and made sure that I was using the right color of the dry embossing to the right card base, so that, you know, I didn't end up putting like the Halloween card base on the one that I stamped with the Christmas image, etc. So got those because yes, I have done that. Definitely when I'm doing, you know, multiple cards for multiple occasions and they're not all the same, there have been times I've done that. So made sure everything was matched up properly. And then each of these snow globes, I used Simon's Big Mama foam tape to pop these onto the cards. So it just gives it that little bit of dimension. So after getting all of those adhered, I am going to get ready to do the crystal glaze and the glitter. So I had an extra glitter duster little tool here that had come in one of Simon's previous card kits. So I decided to put Ranger's Vintage Platinum glitter in that. So I have one with Vintage Platinum. I have another glitter duster that has Ranger's Rock Candy glitter. And then I also have a glitter duster that has Simon's Unicorn Dust glitter. And Ranger's Rock Candy is more of like a white, not really glittery glitter, like iridescent. Simon's Unicorn Dust glitter is iridescent. So those are the 3 I chose to use, just because. I could have used just one glitter on all 3, but more is more. Why not? So with all of these, I coated with the crystal glaze. And it took a little bit of time. Had to, you know, start at one edge and just kind of work my way. I've, again, sped this up in the editing. I just kind of work my way around and just slowly fill everything in. You don't really need to squeeze the bottle too much. This is a much thinner consistency. And just applied it in a nice even layer. Once it was applied, while it's still wet, got out my splat box, and then I'm just lightly dusting glitter with the glitter duster. And this ended up being perfect because I don't want like blobs of glitter. I don't want to completely coat the image because then you won't really see what's inside it. So I just wanted that little bit of glitter. So with the Halloween one, I used the Simon Says Stamp Unicorn Dust glitter. So that little bit of iridescence. And then I set that aside to dry. With the Christmas one, coated the whole snow globe portion with the crystal glaze. If there are air bubbles, I use just the tip of my scissors or a pin. You just pop the air bubble. It's good to go. And then with this one, I used the Rock Candy glitter. This one is much more subtle. In fact, I had a really hard time trying to even pick it up like in photos or anything. But it just gives it just a little bit of, you know, kind of texture and a little bit of shine. Like you can see the light pick up the glitter, but it's not sparkly. It's a really unique sort of glitter. And there's different sizes of it, I noticed. So anyway, blasted that on there with the glitter duster. And then the final one was the fall one. Coated that with the crystal glaze. And this one I'm going to use the Vintage Platinum. And again, this is, I don't often reach for Vintage Platinum glitter. It's just not my thing. And yet, using it with this, it was so perfect. It's just, I'm probably going to reach for it a lot more now because it's just gorgeous. So sprayed that as well with the glitter duster. If you're not familiar with glitter duster, it's just the neatest thing. It just does the lightest like cloud of glitter. Like yeah, until you've actually played with it, it's the neatest thing. So very lightly dusted that on. And then I set all 3 of these aside overnight to dry. Let them dry for a full overnight. Did not touch them. Had to wait so I could finish. But I didn't want to mar. That would completely ruin it if I touched it. So let them completely dry. And then I was able to just use my surface sweep brush to brush off any excess glitter that was on like the backgrounds. And that was it. These are all done. Super fun, glossy, has that glitter in them. It just, ugh. So, as always, there will be a link below my video to my blog post. There will be a supply list with links to everything. Like I said in the beginning, this specific stamp set is limited edition, only available through the month of September 2019 or while supplies last. Yeah, so you can check that out if you are interested. Everything that I used will be linked and listed below as well as on my blog. Thank you all so much for watching, for subscribing, for thumbs upping and commenting. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.